Thank you guys.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate you joining us, but let me get everything good to go here. So my name is Christie Tate. As Kara said, I am the head of human resources for the Kokomo Howard County Public Library, and we are very, very happy to have you join us. This is actually a presentation that we presented back in ILF last year. So we are really happy to kind of represent this for you guys and to help everyone in a topic that we have talked about quite a bit here at the Kokomo Howard County Public Library. So I will turn it over to Faith to do a brief introduction about herself.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here too. And Christie is newer to our library, and I've been here 11 and a half years. And so have a little bit more of the history than she does about this program we're talking about today. So I want to tell you just a tiny bit about our library, because I've sometimes gone to these and I'm not familiar with the library, and then I don't know if they're big or small, and I'm trying to figure that out the whole time. So we serve most of Howard County. Our service population is about 78,000. We have just over 100 employees, and they are scattered between several locations and 2 bookmobiles. And in terms of this whole health wellness incentive journey, our health insurance is bundled with Howard County's insurance. We're part of their insurance group. So we are not politically, legally part of the county in any way. We're independent entities, but we are part of their insurance group. And so they can decide things. They decide what our insurance costs and other things about our insurance. And so originally, when what started this whole wellness incentive journey was that Howard County decided that there would be a wellness screening as part of our health insurance. And since we were part of their group, we did that too. And then we'll tell you a bit about how things transpired. But also to clarify, we still have a screening, but we also have this wellness program that we run, and staff have a 13-week window in which to complete 6 weeks worth of activity, and that happens once a year. And so we'd like to maybe do it longer, but just so you're aware, the way we're running it is it's 6 weeks worth of wellness that an employee who's on insurance chooses. And so Christie's going to tell you just a little bit about why wellness programs might be a good thing to consider.
So as you can see on the screen, healthcare.gov defines a wellness program, but really what a wellness program is meant to do is meant to be a preventative measure that is done for all staff, part of the staff, however you define it. It's basically meant to be something that just really, like it says, promotes wellness within the health of your staff. So a lot of times, if you hear about wellness programs at some bigger corporations, they'll talk about discounts to gym memberships, discounts to different health and wellness organizations, incentives to participate. Sometimes it's smoking cessation. It can be weight loss programs. A lot of times you'll hear about chronic condition management programs. All of those are rolled into what a health and wellness program is meant to be. So it's really something that is just lowers that premium for the cost of something that we all know is really expensive, as insurance costs and wellness programs. So anything to make your staff healthy is what a wellness program is. But what's nice about wellness programs is that they are very personalized for your organization, or they can be. Sometimes wellness programs are dictated to you, which is how ours started, but we were able to take what was dictated to us and we were able to tweak it to something that really benefited our staff and make it really personalized and individualized for what Kokomo Howard County Public Library needed. So it's a pretty broad definition, but again, it's broad because broad can be good, because then it can be used to meet the needs of your staff. So again, corrective to inclusive is what we are talking about. So one good thing about wellness programs is that there is starting to be a lot of research surrounding it. Since it is something that's relatively new, research has just started for it. There haven't been a ton of large scale research done into wellness programs yet. However, that is starting. SHRM has done a benefits study. I know that Wake Forest University is doing a big study. A few companies like Eli Lilly and some of the other companies are starting those long-term big projects to show the benefits of wellness programs, but those are just getting started. So hopefully sometime in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to start seeing the benefits of those come through and get those results. But everything that's been done so far have been some short-term studies, but there are some out there. So the reason that these are being done is because healthcare costs are continuing to increase. I think we all know that. Anyone involved in the benefits world knows that healthcare costs are increasing, and these wellness programs are meant to hopefully prevent and combat some of those rising healthcare costs. We got to keep everything manageable for both our staff and for ourselves as the people who give out these excellent benefits that our staff needs. So again, SHRM did a study back in 2022, and 41% of employers provide some kind of wellness resources or information, but the goal is to move beyond just basic information. The goal is to move on to those real preventative measures. Educational tools are great. Staff need those educational tools, but a well-executed wellness program can reduce healthcare costs. It can augment productivity. It can increase employee retention. And I can tell you as an HR person, that is huge, because it is a lot cheaper to retain a staff member than it is to get a new one. And it really provides a correlation between personal health and job satisfaction. And that's really what we want, is we want to raise the morale of our staff through just promoting wellness. So if you start looking up some of the current research out there, there is some mixed results, because again, there have not been that long-term study, but that hopefully will be changing. But there are several key takeaways that research does show, and that includes that wellness is an individual journey. So what is going to be wellness to me may not be what's wellness to Faith. She may be looking for if she's very physically active, she may be looking at wellness in other ways, because she's got her physical wellness, in her hand. She's great with it. She may be looking for mental health wellness or financial wellness, whereas I really need to focus on my physical wellness. So that can be really individualized. Clear messaging from organizational leaders is huge, because if the organization does not share to their staff why wellness needs to be important, staff probably aren't going to take it as seriously as they should. They're going to look at it as, oh, this is one more thing that I have to do. We don't want it to be one more thing. We want it to be something that is really important, and that the staff really take they really take responsibility for on their own. So looking at community partnerships, or existing resources that you have, going out into your community and saying, how can I support my staff by what's already out there, is huge. Getting feedback from your employees, that has been really key to us, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but getting that feedback from our employees is what actually led us to change what we were doing and to make it really well-rounded. And again, focusing on all aspects of health is really important, because our program started with physical health. It started with, you know, eat your fruits and vegetables, or calorie count, or do something, you know, really physical for 30 minutes, get your heart rate up. That's great. And that is what some people need. But again, there are 5 elements of well-being that need to be covered when you're looking at wellness. Physical is definitely one of them. And that's one that everyone starts with, but there's also career well-being, there's social well-being, there's financial well-being, and there's community well-being. And if you aren't meeting the needs of all of those, you are not going to get a well-rounded program, and you aren't going to meet the needs of every single person in your organization. You know, again, I know somebody who works up in our adult and teen department. He runs 5 miles every day, every single day. So that physical aspect, he has down, because he does it, you know, 365 days a year, which is probably an exaggeration, but a lot of those days. I mean, he even runs on holidays and throughout the dead of winter. For him, physical well-being is not something he needs to work on, but his financial well-being or social well-being, career, community, those are things he can work on. Whereas me, who needs to really work on my physical well-being, that's going to be what I'm going to focus on. So well-rounded programs really are becoming increasingly important. And we all know, and we have heard everything about mental health. So mental health is huge. So if you can add a mental health component into your wellness program, your staff are really going to respond to that, because it is something that is becoming increasingly important as we move into this post-COVID world. So really, that is what research has shown, is to get people to thrive, you have to focus on all 5 aspects of well-being. So I'm going to let Faith talk a little bit about our history and our incentives and all that stuff that happened before I started with the library.
All right. So it started with health screening, as I mentioned, and it was not very pleasant. You would have an appointment and be herded into this large waiting area. And then it was an open room where you'd move from station to station. And it was not private. It was not comfortable. And they would check a lot of things, and you would, I don't know how other people felt, but it was not enjoyable, is all I'll say. And if you failed on any of those benchmarks that they checked, like BMI or a nicotine test, then you were sent to classes on those topics. And if your family members were, like if your spouse, for example, was on our insurance, if they failed it, they had to go to these classes too, regardless of what their work schedule was, and they would be offered on weekday daytime times. And the classes themselves were, people really felt that those were kind of shaming. And so people went to those classes, and they would be the same every year. And then we changed that up. Christy, could you go back to the previous slide for just a minute? So they continued to have screening. We still do it, but it's kinder and it's more private. And they also introduced a separate wellness element. And we actually asked, could we do our own instead of doing yours? And they said, sure. Each of these have a discount on your premium. So you get one discount for submitting to the health screening, and you get a separate discount if you do the 6-week activity that we offer. And so we started with something that, like Christy said, that was very physical. It was only about physical health. And then we just changed to a different system where we, in 2023, where we went with something that's more holistic, which Christy's going to tell you about. And now if you go to the next screen, Christy, just so that you're aware, we do offer also a subsidized membership for our people on our health insurance to the YMCA, and any employee can get get a joiner discount for the YMCA. And it's really close to our downtown location, not so convenient if you work at one of our other locations. And then we offer also an employee assistance program. And if you're not familiar with that, ask later, put it at the end, and we will tell you about that. I feel as if we're probably going to be rushing at the end. And so I want to just move this along. But that's kind of the overview. And so it started by us asking the question if we could separate from what the county was doing. And so I'm pleased that someone here asked that. And that was the very first step in doing something different that became what we're doing now. All right, Christie, I'll let you take it away.
All right. And I do want to plug our employee assistance program. Please do reach out. I personally think our provider is excellent. So reach out if you have any questions. But now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what our current evolution looks like. So when I first started, I've been with KHCPL a little over 2 years. Coming up on 2.5 now. And one of the first things that happened when I started was of course, when you're HR, everyone comes to you and tells you, oh, here's what you need to know, all that good stuff. I heard a lot about our wellness incentive, and staff started saying, I was hearing feedback on, oh, well, we wish it was more well-rounded. There's things we can't do. And we did have a staff member who had some limitations on what they were able to do as far as physical activity. And we all have those staff that can be a little challenging at times, and that was this person, but something great came out of her being a little challenging when it came to our past wellness incentives, is because we realized it was not a well-rounded program. And so I started looking at how can we make this more inclusive for people that may not be able to meet all of the physical aspects of our past iterations. So we moved on to what we look like now. Pardon me. So I moved it to more of a gamification model. I started doing some research and I saw that staff get more engaged when there is a fun aspect to it, and that there is an aspect of again, that gamification model. So I created a document that included 3 months of calendars, like you can see. And then I also created a key that had different activities with a different, like CA was cardio, SL was sleep. So as you can see, each activity has a different amount of points that are attached to that activity. And you can see that here through, and I'll go back to instructions, but you can see that here through our legend of activities. So the top section are activities that can be completed anytime for any reason. They are usually something that is a little bit more physical. So, moving to music, using a workout video, meeting your step goal, seated cardio, yoga, all of those things are physical activities that can be completed, but then the things at the bottom are things that can be done once a week, but cover other aspects of health and wellness. So I pointed out SL on the calendar. If you look, SL was get at least 7 hours of sleep, and you get 2 points for that. The goal is to collect 5 points or less per day for a total of 100 points over the course of the 3 months that we allowed staff to complete the wellness incentive. So which was very easy to do. So if you do 3 days of physical activity and 2 days of another type of activity, you could very easily hit 20 points per week, and you'd be done in 5 weeks. And you have 3 months to complete it. So it really is something that was very easy for staff to complete, but it also covered all aspects of wellness. So I added in, there's financial wellness in here, there's volunteering, 1 hour of volunteering, 3 points. Attending a support group, whether it was on grief or Overeaters Anonymous, anything like that, 3 points. So it was very easy to get your points. One other thing that we did do was journaling or writing for 15 minutes, as you can see, was worth 2 points. You could do that every day of the week. And we even provided journal prompts for our staff to be able to complete for those people that didn't journal. We actually had one staff member who his big thing was, I want to start journaling and I'm going to use this opportunity to create a habit. And he journaled every day for the time that we were doing it. And he still says he still journals. So it really is something that's easy to be completed. And as you can see, I was very specific with the instructions of the date that they should be completed by. They could do it digitally or a hard copy. And we also added in something at the beginning where if there is anybody that needed accommodations through the ADA, we gave instructions on how that was to be completed and by when, because we knew that there were staff that still would need accommodations, and it spoke directly to, here's how you get an accommodation through the Americans with Disabilities Act. So, and then again, this is what a completed month looked like. So it was a very easy, they could print it out, they could do a hard copy. It had the key, just get it completed and get it to me by the end of the 3 months. We did it January, February, and March of every year. And it really worked out well. So we're going to move on to how we measured our results in the end.
All right. And I mentioned, Christie mentioned actually earlier that we presented this at the ILF annual conference in November, and their deadline for presentations is pretty early. And so we actually ended up having to survey staff before everyone was quite done with it. And so I regretted that. However, we did just send out a survey to staff asking them to rate, use a 1 to 5 scale for these few questions about it. And we wanted to do that in advance of putting in our proposal to present, because if staff still hated the new version, it wouldn't have made a very good presentation, right? And yes, they choose 6 weeks out of a 13-week period. You're right, Kara. And we encourage it to be 6 weeks that are sequential, like 6 weeks in a row, but if they can't, they don't have to. Mm-hmm. And so these were the questions we asked on the right and the scores that we got out of 5. And I don't know about you, but staff can sometimes be kind of grumpy about things. And so I thought these were pretty high scores. I agree. Almost any pollster would be happy with these kinds of ratings. And, even, for a 4-point average, that they're going to try to continue one or more of those activities that were newish to them, after we were done with that, which is exactly what we wanted. Yes. And we also really liked it that they did see it as more inclusive. And so we're going to show you some of what staff said. Mm-hmm. We have some quotes for you. And isn't that just fantastic that, people said good things?
Yes, and we were happy with the good things.
Yes. And in terms of the things that, we're learning and what's next, Christie will talk about that. There are some things that staff suggested that we can't do. I'm sure you've always been there, or you have been there as yourself. Yeah. Sometimes, where people make suggestions, they're great, but there's a bigger picture. So Christie will tell you about the things at the bottom of this slide.
Mm-hmm. So again, very pleased with the results. I was actually a little shocked that they weren't, that they were as high as they were. So again, I was very happy, especially as the person who designed it. I was relatively new and was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to get? And I was pleased. So, but we learned that people, again, asked for those mental health options. They wanted something that was going to, burnout's a real problem. Post-COVID, people are thinking about work-life balance and about mental health. So I was glad I was hearing mental health options. And that is something that we did switch up for the 2024 model that we just finished, is that a couple of the weekly ones turned into ones that really focused on more of that mental health aspect. One of the things that we did in 2023 that we did not repeat in 2024 is that I did try to do a couple of in-person classes for staff. One surrounded stress management that was actually presented by our EAP program. It's called New Avenues. And then I did collaborate with the Purdue Extension to do a healthy eating class. We recorded them, we put them out to staff so that way they could watch it later, and we got very low participation. I will say that was one of the aspects that I was a little more disappointed in, because I thought we'd have a better response to that, and we didn't. So we didn't do any classes this year, but we did replace that class option with a mental health option of spending time with family or friends, and that counted towards some points. And I did notice that that did get used a little bit more. So that was a good swap. And again, that was a mental health option. We are considering doing the program twice yearly now instead of just once, so that way we can really reiterate those healthy options and really make them more of something that becomes part of their normal routine. We did have several staff that wanted a lot of the activities of why can't I repeat that? So they wanted some of the activities to be used more than once per week. That's something that we're looking into, but we don't want it. We do want to have those physical options be something that is used. So we're really weighing that. Again, we had a lot of people ask, why can I only get 5 points a day? And why can't I just stack stuff up and get it done in 2 weeks? Again, we have those people who are runners daily, and we have people that eat healthy every single day, and they want to just whip it out and be done. And we've had to explain that's not the point of the program. The point is to, cover it over 6 weeks and really reinforce those healthy options. So that did take a little bit of reinforcement, I'll say, to the staff of why we do it the way we do it. And we have been looking into putting some kind of a health wellness app, mental health app out to staff. We looked into those options of doing, Calm or any of those other wellness apps that we could give staff the option of having. And we're looking at that maybe towards the end of this year, beginning of next year, giving staff that option. So that's what we've learned. And this is something that is going to continue to evolve. This is not something that is going to stay static. We will be changing it as we get feedback from our staff. So now we want to have an interactive element to what we are doing. So and feel free to use the chat for this. This is a great way to learn from your co-attendees. Put some stuff in the chat that are 3 elements of the wellness program that we've talked about, that you've thought of, anything that might work for your staff. Put that in the chat, let us know, and we will, we'll read out a few of our favorites, and we will start looking over questions too to make sure we're going to answer all the questions that you have towards the end. So use the chat, put in your 3 elements or as many as you want that might work for your staff. Take a couple minutes and do that.
And to clarify, it doesn't need to be something we've talked about. You might have different ideas. And in fact, we'll share a slide with some other ideas on it here in a little bit, but let's start with you just seeing what you think of, and then we'll pull up the other slide, which has some slightly different things. I mean, your libraries are probably really different from ours. So you might, for example, be wanting to do something where you don't have much of a budget. You maybe can't get, give a discount on insurance, but what could you do that would be something different? So we're waiting for your ideas.
Yes,
and
I'm
it could be
excited to hear
something
some
we
of them.
do, or that you want to pursue.
Or something you could tweak. You heard something we liked and we're like, ooh, I'm going to tweak this and try this for our staff. Great. Put it out there. Somebody else could learn from you.
Ooh, visit an elderly relative or neighbor, something that is good for connection. I love that idea.
Love that. I'm gonna write that one down. Hopefully nobody minds if I, we can snitch from each other.
There is a question in the chat. Would you look to encourage or require a new activity for participants each year?
That is something that
always doing the same thing. Okay,
yes,
sorry.
and that is something that we have done. We have looked at everything, and again, there's going to be tweaks here or there. Again, the one that we added this year of spending time with family or friends to kind of get that community or mental health aspect did come out of a staff suggestion. So yeah, we are going to continue to adapt because some things may not continue to work, especially of those non-physical elements.
Yeah, and I think the question also sounds like also just getting stuck in a rut, and I will say it's true that some of the elements are the same. And since we went to the wellness calendar, like cardio, and so yes, like I do sometimes use those. I will say that when we had new ones, it was helpful for me to think about things that were things that did bring balance to my life. For example, on our day that we have library board meeting, which we have in the late afternoon, I go after that to an evening board meeting for something I volunteer for. And so it's a stressful day. I often don't get home until 10 or later at night. I worked all day, then went to this meeting. And instead of thinking of it as just stressful, for the wellness calendar, I can say I volunteered for an hour. So, I was doing something that aligns with my values. And so instead of being stressed that I couldn't be physically active that day, it was encouraging me that I was doing something positive for my overall, wellness.
Mm-hmm. And I did have staff that would come to me and say, oh, well, can I tweak this? Hey, I didn't do 30 minutes of cardio, but it takes me 45 minutes to push mow my lawn. And I'm like, that's cardio. So, I mean, again, there's opportunity in there for customization as long as you're meeting the idea behind it. So even though I didn't put lawn work or mowing on there, that's still physical activity. And that, to me, in my mind, that's 5 points.
Well, we also worked with people who were in physical therapy.
Yes,
like we had employees who had surgery, they were in physical therapy. Like, yes, when you're recovering from surgery, physical therapy is absolutely your physical activity for that day. And so there are things that weren't on there that we did, in fact, give people credit for. Okay. So here's one about using different pay more attention to your language and be more conscious about that. For example, I have not been able to get myself to stop saying guys. I mean, I've reduced it, but I haven't totally lost referring to groups of people as guys, which I don't think as being gendered, but other people might, right? So that would be a great thing for me to work on a day to think about my language.
Yeah, mine isn't, and I don't do this at work. I hope I don't. Faith can tell me if I'm wrong, but I say dudes a lot. I call my girlfriends dudes. I call everyone's a dude.
You say it informally. I've never heard you say it to a group of employees, just in one-on-one conversation.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better. But, that also could lean into, spending the day, being conscious of positivity. That could be something that would be a really good one of, making sure that, you're speaking positively to your coworkers and you're not, you're using a positive mindset. That could also be something that would be very good for your mental health as well. That kind of leads into what you were saying as well. So you could walk a dog, and when I'm seeing that, it says walk your dog or a friend's dog, but I'm thinking, what about walking dogs at the animal shelter? I don't know what their rules are about volunteering there. They might have a whole background check process or something. I don't know if they take short-term volunteers, but our animal shelter has actually a cat cafe. Yes. If you went to play with the cats at the cat cafe, that would probably be really good for your mental health. So I'm loving some of your ideas. So yes, and the cat cafe for cat lovers like myself, it is. I always I want to take all the cats home. So there's, you could do good and bad for that. It'd be volunteering, but then you may come home with a cat. So, but you're still
Okay.
helping the community.
I'm going to encourage us to just be, silent. As somebody who tries to do this kind of thing, and I really need people to be quiet while I'm thinking for a minute, let's give you a minute or two of just silence to think about what you could do at your location. And Christie, would you go to the next slide so they can also
Yes.
have something while they're thinking? Will be a few other ideas on the screen to look at.
Let me get this switched over.
All right. Thanks for all the comments in the chat.
Did we have anything good? Anything else pop up?
There are some great comments in there, like visiting an attraction in your community as a positive wellness activity. And, having some sort of plan so that staff can absolutely have their 15-minute breaks, perhaps, I think is what that means. Like maybe thinking of public service desk people, making sure they truly can get that break. That would be a great wellness. So lots of community connections where you could be setting up things. And there's one comment about setting up a meditation or quiet room space for staff to use. That's their own, just for staff. One of our locations does have that. It's called the Barry Manilow room. There's a story there, which we won't go into, but
but it is a great space. It's really unique. You walk in and you're like, oh, okay, what, but the Barry Manilow room is a nice space. I've used it a couple of times. I enjoy it.
All right, so I think that we're ready to, and we can look at other ideas as they pop up, but I think we're ready to start taking just questions. And one of them here is our program voluntary? It is offered to people on insurance, or those are the ones who have to consider whether to do it or not. It's if you don't complete it, you do not get that a certain premium discount every month on your insurance for the whole year.
Yes.
So
yeah.
you don't have to do it if you want to pay. So the way
and
our
we do have
incentives,
some that choose not to do it. They're like, nope, I'm not going to do it. They let me know, and I don't expect a calendar from them.
and I'm pretty sure our incentives are, if you complete the wellness screening, that's $25 per month off your premium.
Yes.
And if you complete the wellness, that's an additional $25
$25
per month off. If you do it, and if you have a family member on our insurance, there's a separate individual.
Yes.
So
and it's a great benefit. I mean, as soon as I started and I was heard, hey, I can get $50 off my premium each month, I was like, what do you need me to do? And when do you need me to complete it by? Like, I will do what you need me to get that $50 off a month. Because that's a chunk of change.
Yeah, so these 6 weeks of activity where you have a 13-week window to do it, which we do it January, February, and March. So as much as Christie likes to talk about mowing her lawn, she is probably shoveling snow instead. But
yeah,
shoveling
I
snow is cardio. I've counted that as cardio. You
yeah.
shovel for half an hour, that's cardio.
Yeah, yeah, we all know how heavy snow can be, so.
And there is no cost to the incentive. I mean, the things like, unless you choose, I mean, there are plenty of things that have no cost. Journaling has no cost, doing oh, I don't know,
walking,
like a video,
meeting.
an exercise video has no cost. So if it's something like you want to belong to a gym to be able to do your cardio, we don't pay your gym membership.
But if you're on our insurance, you can get that discount off a YMCA membership.
Yes, you can. And that's $25, a $25 a month discount.
Correct. Plus an extra 10%. So the way we do it is our staff, anybody can get the 10% discount off each month. And then if you're on our insurance, you get the additional 25% off of that discounted rate. So you get kind of a little, like you said, a little bit of an extra benefit by being on our insurance. Which is nice.
That technical question about the $25 off is interesting. I don't know that I've talked to our finance person about that, but I think that the wellness, at least that the library covers it. I know for sure we cover the YMCA part, with the library actually pays that amount for you. And I'm not sure about the wellness screening. I would need to double check with finance about that. That's a great question.
That is a great question. Yeah. Any other questions?
Was anybody curious about an employee assistance program? Anyone want to hear about that, what that is? Because I probably only learned about an EAP maybe 15 years ago or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
when I was early
process.
In my career, I certainly didn't know about anything like that.
Yeah,
I mean, somebody type in the chat if you don't know what it is. We don't want to repeat things everybody knows. But if anybody isn't familiar, we'd be glad to just give you a little overview.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do an overview of our
perfect. Ginger doesn't know, so let's.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I am a huge proponent of our EAP program. It is through a local company called New Avenues. They're actually out of Fort Wayne. So anybody who works for our library, whether they're 15 hours a week all the way up to full time, can take this benefit. And it's something that the library does pay for on behalf of all of our staff. It is a monthly fee based off of the staff that we have signed up for it, and the staff members can actually go in, and there is an online portion of the EAP, so they can go in, log in with just a very general username, password, and they can look up online resources such as local providers for mental health care. They can look up various discounted services or products. There is a really excellent financial wellness piece called Green Path, and we have had several staff members use that. So they'll go in and help you with budgeting or reducing of your credit card benefits, increasing your credit score. Green Path will help with whatever you need that to be. Or they could go on and get on to like the Better Business Bureau or credit report, consumer reports, anything like that, that may be different parts of wellness that they can get on and look at that. But I think one of our best resources, and something that I wish our staff would use a little bit more, is they also get opportunity to get 5 free sessions of counseling or therapy per year that they can use for whatever they want. We've had staff that have used it for, grief. We've had staff that have gone in there for stress management. We've had staff that have gone in for time management. We've had staff that have gone in for anger issues, or just because they need to talk to somebody. It can really be used for anything. And the EAP does cover 5 sessions. So they'll start with talking with somebody from the EAP, tell them what they need help with, and the EAP will actually partner them with somebody who specializes in that need. And it could be somebody that they have to talk to via telehealth or virtually, or if it could be somebody that's local. We've had a few people that have referred out to local providers because they've said, this is something I want to continue. So then they can continue to see that provider long-term after those EAP sessions run out. Something else that we have utilized is we can actually refer our staff to the EAP as part of their working conditions. So if somebody is under like a performance improvement plan or something like that, we can actually refer them to the EAP and require that they complete those 5 sections as part of that performance improvement plan. And we have seen some really positive results out of that as well, because the provider doesn't tell us what was talked about. They still maintain that confidentiality, but they tell us whether that person has completed their 5 sessions and whether or not the provider has seen improvement in what was talked about in those sessions. So it has been really beneficial to the staff, because then the supervisor can also let the EAP know, which then they pass off to the provider if the issues are still continuing after those 5 sessions have started, because usually it's about a session a week. So it becomes between a 5 and a 6 week process, so that we can see that improvement in that staff member, or whether or not they need something, else that we can't provide, but the EAP can continue to improve and provide that staff member. So it has been a big benefit.
Christie, could I jump in and say a couple of
Yeah,
things?
of course.
One thing about the EAP counseling sessions that I want to clarify, it could be for anyone in the employee's household. So
Of course, yes, thank you.
If your spouse is laid off and your spouse needs the sessions and you're the one on our insurance, that it doesn't matter or works for us, because this has nothing to do with insurance. So that's a really good thing. The other thing I want to say, which is if you're involved with HR, even as much as we want every employee to succeed at work, sometimes they don't. And if you are wanting to lessen the likelihood of an employee winning a lawsuit against you for constructive discharge or some sort of, I don't know, something performance related, that they say that like that you fired them without, for
cause, just cause or whatever.
Yes. Then having referred them to the EAP and provided that at the cost to the employer is another way of showing that you made a good faith effort to help this employee succeed. So while you don't want to spend your whole life worrying about lawsuits, if like me, that is something you really do think about, or, maybe your library's had a bad experience with that, it really is, there are years where we've paid for this, this benefit and it's barely been used. And so, finance is like, why are we paying $3,000 a year or whatever, $2,500 a year, nobody uses it. It's a lot cheaper than losing a lawsuit.
Yes. Well, and it also gives supervisors something else in their toolbox as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we've had, I've, again, huge proponent. I pushed it out to our supervisors, and I've started having supervisors tell their staff members to come and talk to me specifically about the EAP program, because they, supervisors talk to their staff, and if they know they're having a hard time, hey, why don't you go talk to HR about the EAP? And it's one more way to show our staff, hey, we care about you. We care about your mental health, your financial health, whatever it may be. So it's another tool in the
Yes.
supervisor's toolbox.
Yes. It's a way to support the, like
Mm-hmm.
we don't have all the answers to everything that can go wrong with employees.
Yes.
And it's another way to support
Say,
the
here's
supervisor
something.
and the employee with expertise we simply don't have, which is fantastic.
It is. It is.
There was a question in there about whether if there are two employees who are having conflict, can you use the EAP for that? That is a great question. And I will tell you, I asked about that a few years ago. And at the time, I didn't get a good answer to that, although they were having some turnover. And so they did not provide it. I mean, basically what you're looking for is probably mediation.
Yes.
Or some sort of joint counseling with two employees. At the time, it did not appear that our contract included that. I don't know if that's changed. And it could have also been, I mean, I didn't really pursue it with them because it was, it seems to me it was also during COVID. And so we went a different route with that.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean,
so that's a great question, though, and something
they may be able to point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
and you could also ask about that if you were interviewing companies and looking at this as a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, if I were starting over, I would maybe try to negotiate whether that was something that we could do on an added fee basis or something like that.
Right. And in that, as somebody who is trained in mediation, that is something that is kind of specialized. So again, an EAP may be able to point you in the right direction of, hey, that's not something we do, but hey, we know this other provider, or here's some resources that you can look at. So, and they have done that for me before. I've called and talked to them and said, hey, I've got a question about X, Y, and Z. And they've been able to kind of steer me in a direction that's been helpful. And one other thing I like that our EAP does is they actually send out a monthly, or almost every month. They don't quite do it every month, but hey, it's the holidays. Think about seasonal affective disorder, or think about the stress that the holidays can provide. And it's something additional that I can send out to staff to be that little additional morale boost, or that additional support that they may not have got. And it continues to put the EAP in front of them as a resource they can use. Any other questions that have come through the chat? We have about 5 minutes left.
Wow, we answered all your questions. That seems hard to believe.
Yes.
If you think of something later, do contact us, because
definitely,
sometimes afterward you think, oh, I wish I'd asked this question, or that sort of thing. So,
and I'm more than happy to, and I did this after ILF, I will share everything I did was in an Excel spreadsheet. Again, I'm not super techie, so I did it as easily as I could. I'm more than happy to share what we did with everyone, or what the template that we used. Reach out to me. Here's our email, our direct line, our extensions. We added a couple QR codes to my LinkedIn profile, and Faith is actually a columnist with our local newspaper. So you can check out a few of her columns if you want to. Reach out. We are happy to answer any questions or share any resources that we might have with you. And if you are looking for, because we are work for librarians, here's my citation list if you want to look up any of the research that I talked about earlier in the presentation. So now I'm going to go back to our reach out slides. That way you can see it, or scan QR codes or whatever. So any last minute things that have popped up.
Would you guys be willing to share your slides with me so I could send them out with the certificates?
Yeah, of course.
Go back and look. Okay, great.
Yeah, it is PowerPoint, so I will send them off to you.
Okay, so we've got one question. Do the sessions need to be concurrent? But no, they don't have to be concurrent, but they have to be within that 3-month period that they offer.
No,
For
the EAP
sessions do
has
not.
nothing to do with the 3 months. And
I'm
so I
sorry.
did put an answer
No,
in
that's not a
chat.
problem.
Yeah, they can be spread out. You know, like
Mhm.
you might think your problem is under control and then it pops back up later in the year, or a new problem happens. They can be throughout the year, unless it's a management referral, in which case there's a
Yes.
time frame we ask you to.
Correct. And sometimes
The insurance, the person's clarifying.
Oh, okay.
So for the wellness, the 6 weeks of wellness do not have to be in a row.
No.
They have to be within a 13-week period.
Yes, we suggest that they run concurrently because that is the best way to set a pattern, which is what we're looking for. But if somebody, they don't have to be.
Okay, I interpreted concurrent as sequential. Is that what you mean? Or are you meaning it runs together with something else?
Oh.
I'm not sure exactly, maybe a little clarification on that. Okay, sequential. Okay, got it.
Yes, we ask that they're sequential, but we don't require it because we know that somebody may go on a vacation, they may have a medical procedure, they may get
really sick,
cold.
you know,
Yeah.
like, or, you know.
Yeah, and you don't really want to be doing physical activity when you're coughing. So, hey, get the cough over with and then get back to it. Anything else before we end? We have 1 minute.
Thanks for hanging in there. Almost all of
Yes.
you have stayed on the whole time. And
I know, that's
out
exciting.
Early.
Yes, thank you guys so much for allowing us to talk about this and reach out.
And I will be sending out certificates. I will send out a copy of their slides. If you have any questions, let me know or let them know. I know there were a couple questions in the chat that some other people answered, so thank you for that. This has been great. Faith, Christie, thank you so much for doing this for us. It's really interesting to hear about this, and I think this is something that might be inspirational for others to try. So I really appreciate you doing this.
No problem. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Bye. Have a good day.